One Last Try by Steve Lyons. 2,000 years later, when Paramount City was little more than dust and rubble, the assassin returned home. He appeared as suddenly as he had left, his lithe form simply popping into being a metre above ground level. His feet hit concrete and bounced, a shrill whoop of joy escaping his lips as he propelled himself upwards. He flung his laser pistol triumphantly into the air, springing from boulder to rusted post to crumbling wall, a mass of overexcited nerves. The waiting was over. He had achieved his lifetime ambition for the second time. So now he was dancing at the end of the world. As the laser blast struck him, Mallet cried out in disbelief. He could smell his flesh burning, see the circular scorch mark on his tunic. Then his back hit the floor, and he shouted for the one man who might help him, the man who knew the secret. The doctor was no longer there, nor was the assassin, the masked figure in black who had completed his cruel task and blinked out of existence. With his departure, the startled shoppers dared move again. As they milled around his fallen body, the professor gasped for someone to call him an ambulance. It had already been done, but he knew it was too late. Even Paramount's finest doctors would be unable to help him now. "It's not fair," he croaked, as black spots swam before his eyes and consciousness finally left him. "I was going to live forever." The doctor was already in the TARDIS, hurtling around the console in a frenzy of activity. "It's no use," complained Turlough. "There's virtually no chance of locking onto a time trace now." "Never say die, Turlough," the doctor reproved him. He made a few final alterations and stepped back in satisfaction as the central column began to move. Then reality turned sideways, and his unprepared body toppled backwards and hard into Turlough's midriff. "Could you please pilot this thing a bit more carefully?" The doctor ignored his companion's accusing tone. He was already back at the console, holding tight with one hand, making course adjustments with the other. "We've locked onto the assassin all right," he shouted. "We're being buffeted by his wake. We'll be through in—" The room levelled out, the sudden motion adding another bruise to Turlough's collection. "You were right then. He did come through time." The doctor nodded as he checked various readings. "Some 2,000 years into the future, apparently." The TARDIS had landed. Turlough picked himself up painfully and headed for the scanner control. "Let's see what's out there." The assassin had stopped dancing. His plan hadn't worked. His heart sank despairingly, and his eyes filled with tears. How could it have gone wrong? Then his thoughts were interrupted by something which shifted in the air. With a sound like wild elephants, the blue box appeared. He recognized it, surprisingly, through the holes in his memory. He remembered its occupant too, and the pain in his eyes turned to hatred. The pistol felt hard and comforting in his gloved hand. He concealed himself behind a mound of rocks and watched the ship unblinkingly. Once, a long time ago, the doctor had left him for dead. He was back now, just as his life lay once more in ruins. He wouldn't leave this time. "So, this is what becomes of Paramount City," commented Turlough dryly. The doctor nodded sadly. "Warfare, never a good idea. If only more people realized that before it was too late. Come on." He turned off the scanner, and pausing only to lift his hat from its stand in the corner, he headed for the door. As they stepped out into the wasteland, the assassin attacked. With a shriek of rage, he launched himself at the doctor's legs, bearing him to the ground. Turlough grabbed him, hauled him away, and saw the laser pistol not a moment too soon. A crackling tendril of the same fire that had struck Mallet sizzled past his ear, impacting with the impervious outer shell of the TARDIS. Turlough froze, not knowing whether to fight or surrender. Then a voice yelled to them both, "Get back!" He pulled the Doctor aside just in time. 3 shots struck the assassin's chest, 3 fatal bolts of ionized plasma. Turlough coughed and spluttered as centuries-old dust was whipped up around him. The Doctor reached their rescuer first and knocked the blaster from his hand with an uncharacteristic snarl of disgust. There was no need for that. The assassin had vanished, knocked out of sight and buried under rock. "You killed him," stated Turlough disbelievingly. "Thanks, but I don't think so. Better follow me before he comes back." A frown creased the Doctor's features. He moved to obey, but Turlough hesitated. "There's something on my leg," he complained, shaking vigorously until a fluid purple mass hit the ground and slithered hurriedly beneath a stone. "It was alive!" "Some type of native organism," the Doctor deduced. "A newborn race. Humanity is lost to this world, but life goes on regardless." They followed their new companion to what he called his base of operations, an old wine cellar accessed by a short flight of steps. Framed by the dim candlelight within, he cut a somewhat frightening figure. Battle armour, shaven head, combat-scarred features. Maxor, as he had introduced himself en route, was every inch the archetypal mercenary. Or thug, as the Doctor might have put it. Littering the floor were weapons of all descriptions, ranging from home-whittled arrows to canisters of explosives to slings and piles of stones. The Doctor didn't approve. Nor did Turlough when, immediately upon entering, he found himself at the wrong end of their host's gun. "Better tell me what you 2 boys are doing, then." The Doctor sighed. "We're here on behalf of a colleague. I believe your friend out there may have killed him." "A colleague?" repeated Maxor suspiciously. "His name's Professor Mallet," put in Turlough. "Now can you point that gun somewhere else, please?" Maxor's mouth spread into a wide, broken-toothed smile. "You want revenge?" "We want to find out why it happened," the Doctor corrected him, "and perhaps prevent a reoccurrence." "Same thing." He finally lowered his weapon. "I'm here 'cause of Mallet, too." "You knew him?" "Not exactly. He was gunned down in the shopping centre in broad daylight. Took 10 years, but they finally worked out the killer was from the future. They paid me a packet to get to him. Didn't realise, by the time I woke up, the money'd be worth nothing." "They put you in suspended animation?" asked Turlough. "Froze you?" he added, when he saw that the words meant nothing to the mercenary. Maxor nodded. Mallet was on ice anyway. He thought they could wake him when they'd found how to cure death or something. They put me in next to him. The Doctor nodded thoughtfully. "One last try. That sounds like Rex Mallet. For all the time I knew him, he was obsessed by his own mortality, always working on ways to defeat it. The number of times he tried to examine me, to learn about my own—" He caught Maxor's inquisitive look and coughed apologetically. "Well, that's all in the past. So your objective, Mr. Maxor, is what exactly?" "To kill the assassin before he can go back and snuff Mallet." "I rather thought it might be. Fortunately for the time continuum, it's now too late for that. He's done the deed." "He's cracking indestructible," spat Maxor. "Taken me years so far, and I've got nowhere near finishing the job." "So, what will you do now?" asked Turlough. "Kill him anyway, for revenge." And that was when the roof fell in. Maxor wasn't the only one with access to explosives. The assassin had used just enough to make an entrance, not quite enough to maim or kill. He was on the Doctor in an instant, gloved hands squeezing tight around his throat. Maxor charged to the rescue, clutching the figure by his neck and hurling him hard across the cellar. He bounced off the far wall and jumped straight back to his feet, not even winded. The mercenary unleashed a volley of weapons, but his adversary shrugged off sticks, stones, and blaster fire with equal ease. When Maxor went for the explosives, the doctor suggested that it might be time to leave. Turlough was already halfway to the exit. "Dying time!" the assassin shrieked. "Give it your best shot!" There was a desperation in his eyes that even Maxor had never seen before. The first canister rolled straight between his legs, but the masked man made no attempt to escape it. Maxor leaped for cover, and his own bomb finished the demolition job that the assassin had started. Dust showered on the doctor as he took the steps 4 at a time. His eyes were on the carnage behind him, so that he barreled straight into Turlough's back when the boy halted. "What is it?" He pushed past into the harsh light of the surface world. Oh! There was someone there, a young man, totally naked, regarding them with wide eyes and an expression of childlike curiosity. "This is actually very embarrassing," muttered Turlough. The figure was his exact double. Maxor emerged from the bunker a full 5 minutes later, snapping off an irritated shot at a streak of purple which whipped across the ground before him. He hit it, but failed to notice that the blast had no effect at all. "The cracker got away again," he spat, brushing dirt off his combat armour. "Got away?" asked the doctor, "or just gave up trying?" "What do you mean?" The doctor countered the question with one of his own. "What do you know about the native life of this planet?" Maxor looked blank, so the doctor answered himself. "Nothing. I expected as much. But we just encountered something, a life form which tried to replicate my friend here and failed. You shot at it as you arrived." Maxor frowned. "The slime?" "That's right. Only not just slime, Mr. Maxor. You must be remarkably unobservant not to have noticed, in all the time you've been here, that it has a rudimentary intellect of its own. Still, I doubt you're alone on that score. I think even Professor Mallet failed to recognize the truth. Didn't you, Professor?" The assassin jumped, startled at the doctor's words. He had been watching from a short distance, thinking himself unobserved, and as Maxor had complained, he seemed not at all fazed by the recent battle. Without a word now, he slowly removed his mask, and the face beneath was indeed that of Rex Mallet, aged hardly a day since the doctor and Turlough had last seen him. "So the Professor was the assassin all along?" exclaimed Maxor. "Perhaps," mused the doctor. "I want to confirm a theory. Can you show me where you were frozen?" The bunker was a scientist's nightmare. Electronic equipment of all kinds littered the work's surfaces, most of it ripped open and gutted. The doctor moved carefully, fearful of entangling himself in the network of wires which crisscrossed the floor. He shook his head sadly as he discovered the time machine. It had taken someone of great intellect, perhaps 20 years, to get even this far, and yet still it was incomplete. Any Time Lord could see at a glance that the device would never be operated. It would rip apart the very cells of its unfortunate user. And yet, in Mallet's case, that hadn't seemed to be a problem. The inner chamber had once been sealed by a heavy vault door. It was standing open now, and the doctor was able to step cautiously within. As Maxor had informed him, 2 cryopods lay in the centre of the room. His own deductions had warned him what he might find in them. Turlough and Maxor waited on the surface, Mallet hovering impatiently a few yards distant. When the doctor emerged from the bunker, his face was grim. He was clutching a small, radio-like device in his hand. "A psi scanner," he explained. "Part of the medical equipment stored down there to aid the Professor's recovery from suspension." He hoisted the device and moved slowly towards Mallet, careful not to appear threatening. The erstwhile assassin flinched and took a few quick paces backwards. But he didn't run. The doctor pressed the psi scanner to his forehead, nodding solemnly as a series of figures flashed across its LCD screen. "Do you still want to die?" he asked softly. He had already prized a hatch off the scanner's back and was poking a screwdriver into its internal workings. "I should never have found the secret," Mallet whispered. "To live forever, to watch your friends, your whole race die. I never could have known it would be like this." Tears filled his eyes and he fell suddenly to the ground, whimpering. "Years and years and years and—" "Goodbye, Rex," said the doctor. He held the device once more to the professor's head, and he operated it. The assassin laughed out loud as he died. Maxwell gasped as his body melted like a heated wax statue, leaving only the costume behind. Its hue darkened to purple, its consistency became molten, and its essence split into 1,000 strands, each darting for safety behind the first boulder it could find. "Physical threats couldn't harm him, you see," the doctor explained as they returned to the TARDIS. "His infinitely malleable body simply adapted to them. I had to disrupt the neural functions which were holding that body together. By reversing the output of the psi scanner, I was able to do that. I didn't kill the entity, but I did erase Mallet's template from its makeup." Maxor was still struggling to take it all in. Maxor wasn't the assassin. "Professor Mallet died a long time ago, I'm afraid, when the seals on his cryopod perished. This planet now plays host to a burgeoning new race with a tremendously fast adaptation rate. It's looking for a direction to evolve in. It found the professor and copied his genetic template. The problem was it took his emotions and obsessions along with it. In its delirium, it believed it really was Rex Mallet, and that he had somehow achieved his objective of living forever. As the years passed, the strain of that belief drove the poor creature totally insane. Hence its misguided attempt at averting the problem in the past." He paused for breath as he reached the ship and fumbled in his pocket for the key. "You'd better come with us," he told Maxor. "I'll take you back to your own time, or at least to a planet with intelligent life. One condition, though. Leave the gun behind. You won't be needing it." The mercenary looked set to argue, but the look in the doctor's eyes was resolute. He sighed and turned, preparing to fling the deadly weapon into the dirt. And at that moment, the doctor pounced, springing onto his shoulders and pressing the psi scanner against his head. Maxor screamed as his body fell apart. Within moments, the only remnants were the familiar ribbons of purple slime. Turlough's jaw was hanging open. The doctor spoke almost apologetically. "There were 2 bodies in the chamber." "You must have been pretty sure about Maxor," commented Turlough, as the doctor laid in a fresh course. "I was. We were only here for a few minutes, remember, before the lifeform tried to use you as a template. It would have been an astonishing coincidence had Maxor lasted all this time without so much as noticing anything untoward." "He seemed happy with himself, though," Turlough objected. "I mean, not like the professor. Couldn't you have left him?" "We can't play with evolution, Turlough. The time of Mallet and Maxor has passed. This planet belongs to a new species now, and I cannot allow relics of the past to influence that species' future. It's better this way, believe me." As the TARDIS departed, a purple-hued pool gathered once again amongst the debris. It bubbled upwards, coalescing into a humanoid shape, gaining form and substance as more slivers darted across the rocks and merged with it. Its colour paled, its texture became rougher, it began to grow features. It paused then, and it might just have collapsed back into nothing. But then, The mind it was beginning to assimilate had something special about it, something which had also been present in the thoughts of Maxor and Rex Mallet. It believed in the virtue of determination, of refusing to give up on a struggle. It was a mind that would never say die. And that half-formed creature learnt from that, knowing that this form, this beautiful Time Lord body, was too precious to let go without a fight. It steeled itself for one last try. The doctors had wanted to turn off the life support systems. Jed had stopped them. It was against everything his father had ever wanted. For his whole life, Rex Mallet had been terrified of death. His whole life he had spent searching for one thing. So the necessary papers were signed and the necessary palms greased. Within hours, the professor was carried in a state of cryonic suspension into the bunker he had once built with this very purpose in mind. As they laid him to rest there, Jed swore he saw his father's face twitch, his mouth pulled briefly into the faintest of smiles. Of course, the doctors assured him that was impossible. But of this one thing was Jed Mallet positive. Rex had gone to his rest happy. He had got what he'd always longed for. He was finally living forever.